Hi everyone, really excited to be here today. And please, if I start talking too fast, let me know because I have a tendency to do that and use words you may not know. So please, jump in anytime, ask me questions. I hope this can be workshopy. I want this to be as helpful for you guys as it can be. So I'm Kelly Reeves, as she mentioned. I work at a company called Not Twice, where we are working with journalists for branded content websites for our clients. So a little background on me. Before this, I was working with a company called Outbrain, which is a content discovery technology for publishers that helps the publishers recommend content to readers, both branded and that as well. So I've been in this conversation. Oh, prior to that, I ran a website for AOL for about 3 or 4 years. So I have the editorial background, so I can sympathize with both sides for marketing and journalism and editorial as well. So I kind of wanted to focus on creating win-win-win branded journalism. So branded journalism that's great for the journalists, that's great for the marketers or for the brands. I'll refer to them as brands probably usually throughout. And the biggest thing, winning for the consumers, the people, you guys, us, who just want really great stuff to read, and whether it's from a brand or from a journalist. So the way that we define it, branded journalism, is an honest brand storytelling that invites the audience to participate. The great thing about digital, and that's probably another thing we could fight about, is that it gives the brands an opportunity to really connect with the audience in a new way. Much more than a push message that they're used to hear, that people are used to getting all the time from advertisers. First time where you can jump on Twitter and talk to a brand. You can tell them what you think about their new products or their messaging. So it kind of makes brands be honest and open about what they're doing. And what we see is that when brands get behind that and they are honest about what they're up to, they're being transparent, the consumers are a lot more likely to feel affinity, feel niceness to the brands. So you've probably heard this a lot, I don't know, you tell me, that brands should behave more like publishers, to take on more of a publisher type role, to a journalist type role, to be able to react to this real-time environment of talking to consumers. So what we like to say is behave like a publisher allows you to tell your story in your own words. So yes, people are going to be criticizing your brand on Twitter. Oh, I meant to ask first of all, sorry. How many people in the audience are journalists or writers traditionally? Okay, so there's a lot more of you guys. All right, and brands, or you're on the marketer side, working with journalists or wanting to? Okay, all right, so that helps. So, put on the journalist hat. So, yeah. So brands are trying to take on these characteristics of being able to, or learn how to be honest and tell the story in their own words. Because in an age of social media, stories aren't buried. As soon as something happens that they don't like, people are going to be talking about it, tweeting about it. So this allows brands to at least make an effort of showing what they got and be honest about it. Communicating through characters and narratives versus jargon. So instead of pushing messages and advertisements at you, it's really trying to build a story of, this is our company, this is why we were built, if they want to go this direction, why should you care as a consumer? This is creating emotion, trying to give you that connection. Also, it allows you to reach savvy audiences that are immune to marketing messages. So these are, this is an example, this image is from my campaign that my colleagues did for Microsoft, where they established a network of IT professionals to do the writing and to do the talking. Because as you can imagine, IT professionals don't listen to marketing messages. They want to hear from each other. They want to know what each other has to say. So they established a network where the professionals were the ones doing the writing and offering the feedback on behalf of Microsoft. It also, this is kind of a side benefit, allows you to align messaging across an organization. So from a lot of big companies, lots of different silos, as we call them in America, I don't know about here, but where this department is working very separately from this other department. Yes, they may have top-level brand messages, but if they have a site or the content they're creating, it kind of gives something that everyone can rally around and really understand what it is we stand for and what we're trying to get across. It also allows to start thinking like a journalist, right? So being quick to respond to something, to get used to being open and honest and telling the story as you want to tell it. So I'm going to go through a couple best practices that we've learned from, and this may be more helpful for you guys, of working with journalists on some branded publications online that we made for our clients. We work with some big ones like the Googles and the News Corps of the world, down to the small startups. So what I'm going to focus on here are the big examples, the owned destinations that we kind of walked through already. So in terms of working with journalists, there's two main ways that we're doing it right now. One is commissioning them to write thought leadership pieces on behalf of the brands. So some examples of this are, I'll show you in a second, it'll be good. The other one is hiring editors or writers to actually staff these publications. So in some instances, we'll set up an entire online magazine, for lack of a better term, to show off the branded content, and we will actually hire former journalists and writers to become the editorial teams for this. So here's an example of one that we produced for a company, Qualcomm. Are you guys familiar with that? It's a very big brand that produces microchips for your phones, mobile phones. So they wanted to kind of raise awareness for the most part, because a lot of people, it's not really a customer brand. It's something that manufacturers use in their phones. So they wanted to establish credibility in the tech space. So what they did is we built this website called Qualcomm Spark, which featured 3 different types of content. One, which is being promoted here, is long form for the web, so maybe 3 to 10 minute videos, kind of documentary style, covering different issues in technology. And their kind of mantra behind the site was, what's inside matters. So all of the topics that are covered on the website are about technology and about what makes things tick. It's not about, we have these great microchips and they're awesome. It's more about just talking about the space and raising thought leadership around it. So that's one area. And then down here we have the Spark Salon, which is where we would get the thought leadership influencers to write on behalf of the brands. So in this example here, there's a Q&A with Angry Birds. Do you guys know Angry Birds? Yeah, okay, awesome. The creator of Angry Birds. When I was putting this together, I was finding that a lot of my examples might not have translated very well. So I was trying to find the ones you guys may know. So obviously this guy's probably very busy, but he did the creator and the main developer of Angry Birds wrote a piece did a Q&A for this website. And some other ones include, and if you're tweeting or anything, maybe not mention the names and the brands, because we want to keep our good reputation with them. I don't want them to think that, we're talking, raising too much profile, because we do go, as you'll see in a minute, we go a long way to try to protect these relationships and also protect them as journalists as well. But, yeah, so here's one example. So here's another, which is kind of light, so you may not be able to see, but this is the website Amplify Education. It's a News Corps, it's a big news organization, I don't know if you guys know, in New York. And what they're looking to promote here, or what their business is, they produce tablet technologies, curriculum for the classroom. So we built this hub to promote issues in technology and education, and talking about, the challenges for teachers, and really just raise the thought leadership here. So the example I wanted to show, hold on, let me get to an example. So this was actually no, I'll get to that later. Sorry. Anyway, this is another example. Any questions on that? I know I'm speaking really quickly. Sorry. So anyway, here's kind of some tips for us when we are looking to work with journalists, because as you can imagine, on our team specifically, we do have editorial backgrounds, so we are very, very sensitive to, trying to be competitive to a fault, and also being very sensitive to our friends in the media as well, because a lot of them are our contacts we've been working with for a long time, and so we kind of have these established rules that we work around. So we don't go after staff writers at magazines or newspapers. We try to have at least some lines.
Why?
So, I think we probably could, but I think we don't think of the bad rap that branded journalism has right now. Can you imagine if we went and poached an editor from a publication? It could be very interesting. Yeah, I don't know. But freelancers are totally fair game, and especially ones who are recently been laid off or looking for jobs. But that said, externalists, that's good. But for us, it's in our best interest to, if we're going to be writing, content is clearly a good way to resonate with people. So if we're going to go out and find people to write, journalists are a no-brainer for us because they're trusted contacts, they know how it works, they know how to report and to really tell a great story and do great content. They're not just great writers. So other things that we found is when we're recruiting for the more long-term thought leadership pieces, is startup founders and thought leaders, they love the extra exposure. Usually they're trying to promote something or at least get their name out there. But then also the money is also a very good motivator as well. It's been talked about here. We kind of see the same thing for our clients. We're paying at least double of the market rate in the U.S. So it's, we have this money from these brands to be able to put in the resources to create something awesome. And we're also looking for subject matter expertise. So if we're going to launch a site about education technology, we're finding people who have been covering that for their entire career or that really know about it. All right. So another important thing that we distinguish is editorial control. And we give all of our journalists full editorial control. And that's something that we say up front with our clients, and we make them buy into it because this is really important for journalists that are putting their names and their brands, their personal brands at stake for these publications. So we don't allow our clients and the journalists to interact at all. We are the intermediary between them. And clients, of course, have the opportunity to request edits or decide that something should not be published, but it's ultimately up to the decision of the editors on our staff. So also, clear disclaimers. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but we're all about being as clear as possible. So if we're getting a known tech writer to publish on behalf of something, it has their name on it. There's disclaimers that protects the company and protects the journalist. That way everyone knows there's putting out their position here and that the journalist is not endorsing the product, nor is the product endorsed So here's an example from the Amplify site I showed you earlier. We were able to get the former U.S. Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor to do a Q&A, which is often a lot of times easier to get with higher profile ones. We're very busy. They can do a Q&A, but we do get people to write as well. But if you scroll to the bottom here, you'll see color's not showing. So down here, this is the disclaimer here at the bottom. It has her name fully, this is her bio, but this article is commissioned by Amplify Education. Views and opinions expressed by the author or interview subject do not necessarily state or reflect those of Amplify Education. This article should not be taken to imply endorsement or recommendation of Amplify products or services by Justice Sandra Day O'Connor or the Supreme Court of the United States. Clearly, it couldn't get any clearer than that for readers to know that this is just a piece. And also, when you're getting into brand journalism, honesty is obviously the most important thing. So our approach when we are trying to get to a new niche community, which is often what our clients are looking for us to do, they say, hey, we're looking to get tech influencers. It's a very intense community that has their own language, that has their own voice. So you can't think you're just going to go in there and be like, hey, we're going to take over. You have to really learn the community, respect it, and speak in their language. And that's why one reason getting people who are a part of the community can really help. So think like a journalist. Just because you're writing for a branded publication doesn't mean you should throw everything you know out the window. You should always strive to tell a great story, because that's what's going to resonate with people, and that's what people want to read.
Any questions?
You started your story with the win-win-win situation. I'm rather interested in a local situation. Are there any examples of where journalists walk out of the job or where firms walk out of the job? Is it been company agreement?
Not that I know of off the top of my head. I'm sure they exist. I mean, I'm sure there's pieces that have been killed because the brand or the client just can't let go and don't want to be that open. And I'm sure there's some journalists who don't want to be associated. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any examples, but there's a fun example of we're doing a piece on, I think it was mobile gaming for Qualcomm, the first example I showed, and we commissioned a high-tech analyst to write about it, and he came back, and the title was Mobile Gaming Sucks. So it was kind of the opposite of, it was very interesting. But we were actually able to get another journalist to write a counterpoint, and we convinced the client to publish it, which was really, really cool that they were willing to publish something that was probably anti the message they were trying to say on their publication. But yeah.
So one article said this game sucks, another article said it's a great game.
Yeah, it was just talking about mobile gaming in general. The person we commissioned came back with that it sucks and gave all his reasons. And so the client still published it though, even though it was probably not what they wanted to put out there.
Is there any negotiation going on between company and journalists before the piece is written or made about the content? I'm not talking about the ideology of the content, but about what is going to be written.
No, so I think all that comes from the agency. We kind of sit in the middle between them, so they don't have direct access. We definitely, when we're reaching out to people or having a conversation with a journalist, we'll say, this is what we're looking for, or these are the types of things we're looking to post about. Sometimes very specific, sometimes general. And so I guess the negotiation is going on between us and them to kind of help get it ready.
But are there also examples like that there are, let's say, clear no-go areas for the company, the corporation?
Yeah, sometimes we'll establish those up front. But I don't know actually. That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, sometimes we'll lay out that. I mean, there's obvious no-goes, but I think when we're commissioning pieces, we try to keep it as straightforward as possible. Like you do, hey journalist, you write what you want to write, and then we'll figure out what happens from there. But there's probably some back and forth.
More questions?
This is a real question. I'm sure because I work in the banking industry, not really doing this, and inspiring you. I have a question. Just to stress test your independence in these kind of websites. For instance, that Amplify company, so that was trying to promote tablet technology. So would the journalists on that site, would they be able to write a story about, for example, danger of radiation of tablets for children?
Probably not. Yeah, that's a good question though. I mean, yeah.
So there are kind of limits or boundaries.
Yeah.
You have to be aware of.
Yeah.
It's not independent.
Not completely independent. I mean, it would be amazing if we could find a client. I mean, I think maybe we'll get there. I don't know. as the industry keeps going and brands are pushing further and further. That'd be really interesting to see. Because that could create a great debate, right? Is the value better than the...
Oh, I understand now. Well, I have a question. This question and answer story you had with the judge or corner, was it? You had a whole piece underneath explaining the situation and the company was not responsible, etc. I was wondering, is there an American organization, like for example an advertising watchdog, keeping in track of that, or did you develop it yourself?
Oh, the actual copy for it? Yeah, I don't know actually. I'm sure there's templates or best practices out there for, are you talking about for the actual disclaimer of the article?
And disclaimer.
Yeah. I'm not sure, actually. Have you found anything in your research about, I don't know.
But is there no organization in America, like an advertising watchdog, to check whether text are advertising or not?
I don't think, not that I know of. Which is probably part of the problem, yeah?
Yes.
Of some of the
advice is, I advise you should not set up one.
Well, I think that's what's bringing across some of the more questionable examples of people not disclosing things if they don't have to. Some obviously see the value in proper disclosure, so that way you're protecting both sides. But
Ellie, you already mentioned the different, you said, well, we're not going to media companies to take the people away. Does it mean that it feels for you also a little awkward to work with journalists? Like, only if they lost their job, you think, okay,
yeah,
they don't have a job.
I think I would say we're not aggressively trying to poach people, because in a lot of cases, these are our colleagues that we've worked with before. And it just from a personal level, that's kind of, I don't know, poaching someone from someone else. If we found the amazing contact that would be perfect for a role, I can't say that we wouldn't. But I think just generally speaking, freelance, like we're finding a lot of our best writers and editors from the freelance pool, or people who are looking for a new challenge.
And do these former colleagues of you sometimes say to you, think that you went to the other side, as we say here in Holland? Oh, he went to the other side. It's not really common nowadays to say it this way anymore. It used to be.
Yeah, not really, actually. I don't know if it's just because the conversation is so loud in America right now, and so many brands are getting into this game. No, not at all.
You also organized a series of debates on branded journalism in New York.
Yes.
And how was the temperature over there in the debates?
It was pretty good. Not as heated as this one feels like it's going to be, actually. Maybe you guys are, sticking to your guns a little better than us. But I think that, the questions on our end are, a lot of times on the disclaimers and the what is this? How do we monetize it? How do we prove that it's worth up the time and the money? Because it does cost a lot of money to create these things. It's not that, it's content, it's cheap. We're getting good journalists who we're paying well, so it's not cheap. So proving the ROI is the return on investment. So the money we're putting in is really a hot topic right now for us, because they're like, great, I'm spending all this money and all this great writing and these websites, but what am I getting? It's a little harder to measure, which I'm sure, the old school, print publishing is hard to measure too, but or, in digital, and it's so easy to track clicks and know what's happening. And so you think, because it's online, we'll be able to track it really quickly. But how do you track awareness? How do you track those big perception shifts?
Well, we can ask that.
Yeah.
To Jan Dries. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Have a seat and join the discussion.